sure to share your thoughts. And also, please put in the chat where you're joining us from. We'd like to know where you're joining us from. We value everyone's input, and the simple practices will help us stay focused and respectful throughout this discussion. And also, I would like to say we are honored to have a distinguished group of professionals and participants from the fields of research, medicine, public health, and policy. So today's conversation promises to be loaded, thought-provoking, and transformative. So as we explore today's topic, I want everybody to be in the game. Be in the game. Okay, so let me just take a run through what we have so that we can have a context to what we have this evening. So please, you can go to the chat, tell us where you're chatting from. So why does this conversation really matter? We have had a lot of conversations in the past concerning clinical research and clinical trials. So we are bringing our own thing, which is traditional medicine, into the conversation. We know that over the decades, over centuries, right from when our countries were being found, especially in this part of Africa and let's say Asia, yes, we know that traditional medicine has served a lot of community, and now we're looking at it that do we continue the way traditional medicine is, or do we ensure that we put efficacy and safety into perspective when it comes to traditional medicine? Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, so let's just understand what traditional medicine is. Traditional medicine is our cultural heritage and it builds community trust, is what our fathers have been using, our mothers have been using since ages past. And um, what we know about is that we take a shot of this, we mix this and that and this together. Like you can see in the picture, we mix a lot of things together and we just take and these remedies have actually served for a very long time. If we look at the positive aspects, and these are basically the things that we've been using, like neem for anti-malaria, cola for cough and congestion, honey for cough, also for healing, aloe vera for skin, and then TBs, and amongst others. We have a list of them that we have been using over the years. Thank you, Genga. Next slide, please. Okay, so now the case that we have for testing and regulation. Why should we test these things? We've been using it and we did not die. Our parents have been using it for the past months or years or centuries, and they lived to be 100 and something, 200 and something. And why should we actually test and regulate it? One of these is to ensure efficacy, and also to promote our heritage on a global platform. You know, it's going to be a little weird where you take a root and give to someone from another country that, oh, this is going to cure whatever is wrong with you. They look and they're like, oh. So the capsule, the caplets, the injections, the vaccines, they come in presentable, widely accepted form that makes it very easier for us to just say, okay, this is acceptable. And then they come in dosages. And it's not like you're just taking a little of this. You know, we have this intuition, especially when we are mixing all of this up. You hear people say that this kind of drug can work for 1001 situations. Yes, so testing and regulation ensures that this is not a fit for all, it's specific. So that is the case for the testing and the regulation. Can we have the next slide, Benga? Okay, Benga, can we have the next slide? We have the case against testing and regulation, against full regulation. So we believe, or most of us and our fathers believe, that if we decide to transcend or bring all of this into science and we scientify everything, we lose our roots, we lose where it is coming from. instead of naming this drug after our own language or after the way we see it, it is converted into an English word or a chemical word. So we feel that at some point our heritage is being taken away from us and we lose sight of cultural identity. Another one is for traditional medicine, it is quite expensive and complex to conduct clinical trials because you need to bring them into the chemical form and then start ensuring that okay, this dosage is what works. This is the composition of this. This is the quantity we need to use in this. So there's a lot of restraint when it comes to resources about um, how expensive and how complex they are. So for traditional medicine, we need to create a new protocol, um, pathways. It's not just the normal pathways that we've had for clinical trials for IPs over the year. This over the years, this is going to be quite different. It's going to take a lot of processes. And at the end of the day, we wonder who eventually owns the drug. Is it we who started it, our culture, or is it those who have transformed it into science, who have given it a name? Where exactly is the end point? What do we get out of this? So these are some of the things that at the end of the day becomes a case against full regulation. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so these are just a few examples. Now, traditional medicine is not just restricted to Nigeria. Like I said, it cuts across people and places. Take, for example, China. China is, when you talk about traditional medicine, you watch their movies, you read online what they are doing. Even there's this thing about China that when I hear China, the first thing that comes to my mind is their traditional medicine, the way they eat their food, the things they drink, the herbs they take, the so many vegetables on their plate when they're eating. So it's not just a Nigerian thing. It's there in China, it's there in India, and we have a lot of examples. Take for example, at a meeting, it's a malaria treatment, and when you look at the root, it is directly connected to a research that whose root was founded in the traditional China medicine text. So it is not just a Nigerian thing. We have a lot of examples: smallpox vaccine, Chinona, tree bark, aspirin, and a whole lot of that. So next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, so yes, so now that is now pushing forward. Okay, thank you. So this balance, I would really like to talk about it because I would want us to discuss it at the end of the day. So it's going to look like the solutions to what we are discussing at the end of the day. So let me have the next slide, please. So now that is pushing for a testing ground. NAFDAC is pushing for approval of about products only when they have undergone clinical trials. That is the only way that they can verify and certify the efficacy and the safety of about products. So before I continue, I would like to bring on board one of our team members. He's in charge of global protocol, global programs, in person of Mrs. Noria Phillips to please take the welcoming speech so that we can move on from there. Thank you very much, ma'am.
All right. Hello, everybody. Good evening. And I want to especially thank you for making out some time to join us. It's Friday evening. So, from the place I'm speaking, usually once it's Friday evening, you are preparing to go to the pub, not to sit down and start discussing academics again. So so thank you for making out the time to join us. I don't have a lot to say. I feel that this is about time. And basically the reason why I say that is because there's a lot of abuse that's ongoing right now. And when I say abuse, I'm talking about, the access to social media. Basically, that's the main problem because a lot of people come to social media. They say if you take three bay leaves and two lime and the back of pineapple and whatever, you boil it together and drink it, your stomach will be very flat. And so everybody is drinking all sorts of things. But the fact is that a lot of people that are drinking a lot of things, they are not considering two main things. I don't know whether the biochemists and the pharmacists are here. There are two main things that they don't consider: the pharmacokinetics of the substance they are taking in and the pharmacodynamics. Now, what are you talking about? I'm talking about what the drug does to the body and how the body also interacts with the medicine. They are two different things entirely. And I think as Nigerians, as Africans, as cultural people, and as we already said, the Chinese and whatever, most times we are looking at the physiological effect of the drugs. Man, if I take this shot now, I'll feel better. My drug, my cough will clear and whatever. But a lot of things that people do not consider is what is the pharmacodynamic, how is the dynamics of the drugs in between the metabolism, how is it being metabolized within your body? How is it being absorbed? How is it interacting with every other thing that you are consuming? And we don't consider that at all. We don't consider that. So I think it's something that we need to focus on. It's something that we need to discuss. My grandfather was a herbalist. I grew up with the whole, drink this, drink that, shake it in a bit of a. If we are a Nigerian, we have what we call ogogoro, very pure alcohol, or some people call it akpeteshi. You know, we have, so they shake it inside, they leave it to soak for some time, and of course, I mean, all these cough medicines are made from alcohol anyway. But the thing is, I know that for these men, this older generation of the herbalists and whatever, even if they did not write their metrics down, they had some level of measure. They had measures and they had some level of control. You couldn't just, nobody could just go into the bush anyhow. Um, I'm going to be a bit local here, so please forgive me if you're not Nigerian online. I'm just going to speak from that context. I lived in Lagos for a long time, and there is a market in the mainland area. They call it Agege Market, and they have a section that they call Elewe Omo. They are like they sell herbs. You can't just go and say, I'm going to go and grab herbs. They will measure it for you. They will measure it and give it to you. That's why they say you are going to meet these people. But today, what we are seeing is that people keep saying, oh, go and grab this, go and grab that, knock it together and you drink it. And unfortunately, there are a lot of strange things that we are eating today. We are not eating the organic food that they used to eat those days that made the interaction of the drug within us not have that reverse effect. So there are a lot of considerations. So I'm interested in this conversation today. I want to see I want to see how people will lean, but the fact is that, and as Joke already said, there's a lot of herbal medicine in Asia. Today, a lot of people are talking about turmeric, they're talking about ashwagandha, they are talking about valerian roots and all of this. I take ashwagandha to relax. And the ashwagandha I take is in um, um, 1000 milligram caplets. It's a root, but it's been processed. And I take turmeric for pains, and the turmeric is in a 500 milligram caplets, right? So I take what's it called? Chamomile. Some of us are drinking chamomile and all of that. They are in bags. So there's a control to the measure, because if you take too much of ashwagandha, for instance, it's going to affect your mindset, and then you are going to be slow because it has that effect. So it's not about the fact that we are attacking our culture. It's not about the fact that you're looking to eradicate it. I feel, from my perspective, that we need to come to that place where we start to think about dosage, metrics, measure, and all of that. Have you seen the typical Nigerian woman or African woman or Asian woman cooking? They don't measure. We just take our hand, pour it inside, they'll say, okay, just use your eyes to measure the oil, use your eyes to measure the pepper. We are used to it. It's such a cultural thing, and I believe that we need to start coming to that place where we unlearn those things that we have learned previously, and then start to inculcate new things. My second degree is in education. I studied biology and education. The first one of the courses I did, there was comparative education, and I didn't like the lecturer. He was a very annoying man, but I cannot forget the first class I joined. And he talked about how you take another person's information, take your own, combine it, and then come up with something entirely new. And that's what I'm trying to, for me, that's what I would want us to do as Nigerians, that, or as Africans, or as China is already, I have, there's a there's like a sticker that I can put on my hand, which absorbs collagen into my body. It's controlled. So China, if we want to talk about China, China, yes, they do their herbalist and whatever. They are doing all this Ayurvedic treatment, and that's why I used turmeric and ashwagandha as an example. India is controlling it. China is controlling it. So I don't blame NAFDAC if NAFDAC is trying to make sure that, we come to that place and we start to control it. So it's not a case of, you go and sit down at the bus stop and say, Mama, give me Okpaini, give me, what's it called, Paraga, give me this one, alomo and everything. You combine it and then you drink it. And then when you faint, they'll say, oh, the people from the village, they've attacked this man. The poor guy just got a job yesterday, oh, and see now they have gone to eat him in the dream. Because this is the way we think. But we are not thinking about the things we are doing to ourselves because of, we say that, they kill African man. So I'm going to stop there. And then when the speakers come on board and all of that, we are going to continue in this conversation. But I'm really excited to hear what people have to say tonight. So welcome, and let's go into it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That was very short and insightful. Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll be having our first speaker here. Um, can you kindly share the slide for the first speaker next? Okay, so we'll be having Dr. Mansour. Dr. Mansour Ramalan will be joining us to give us the first lecture. Should traditional medicine be tested through clinical trials like modern medicine? And is Okay, yes, I see him now. So please join me to welcome him to take over. Thank you very much. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much for, first of all, thinking about a very beautiful topic like this. And also, thank you for inviting me to speak today. I mean, I didn't really know that I was going to be highly honored to be speaking to you people today. Well, all the same, thank you very much. Um, can I have the next slide? So just to introduce what I have to say is that I have my background in clinical pharmacology and internal medicine. Actually, I started from metabolic medicine and endocrinology. But like it was highlighted by the two previous speakers, traditional medicine in Nigeria and in many parts of the world may actually account for up to 80% of um, healthcare needs in some population. Whether all the things they use work is another thing, but 80% of the population at one point in time or the other have been reported to use traditional medicine. So for the purpose of this discussion, I would like to explore the feasibility and challenges and then adaptations in clinical trials that we need to look into. Now, to answer the question that was given to me, I can say yes, traditional medicine, or I should say yes, traditional medicine should be tested through clinical trials in order to establish their safety, their efficacy, and also above all, to integrate them into the modern healthcare. Because some of those herbal medications, like we've mentioned earlier, have actually found their way into modern healthcare system. Some of them have therapeutic benefits, things that we are already using today, like our anti-malarials, drugs that we use to treat heart failure, like digoxin, some other medications, like some of those anti-cancer, were actually plant-derived herbal products. But also to say that there are also other products that have been found to, be useful as multivitamins, as adjunct to therapies. Things like ginkgo biloba, ginseng, and so palmetto that is used to for people who have prostate issues. Well, clinical trials actually offer a possibility to explore the efficacy and therapeutic usefulness of medications, and they should apply to to traditional medicine, especially herbal medicines and other aspects of um, traditional medicine. Because when we talk about traditional medicine, we are talking about the holistic um, approach to healthcare and illnesses in terms of prevention, treatment, and they include practices, culture, uh, and sometimes, I mean, use of herbal medications. And then herbal medicine itself is actually the use of plant-derived products like the roots, the barks, the leaves, the juices, and everything in the treatment and prevention of diseases. Next slide, please. Now, the reasons why traditional medicine should undergo clinical trials is we, first of all, like I said, have to prove that whatever herbal medications or traditional medications you have is efficacious enough to be used and actually safe for the population. Because even if they are efficacious, if they are not safe, they will not be licensed for use. And also to integrate whatever we have identified, if we find that these things are safe through rigorous scientific trials, we can integrate them into modern medicine, and then that will allow a lot of people to access those medications. And of course, there are other benefits like global benefits where many of these products will now be available for other people, and the commercial aspect, of course, that is available to pharma companies and the researchers alike. The next slide. Yes, well, there are so many challenges that are associated with traditional medicines currently. One is the difficulty in some of the procedures or methodologies they use or practices. You see that, especially in this part of the world, some of those things have been passed on from generation to generation. Like I was working with a particular plant that is called Borosus atropium, and it's a common plant that people use in Nigeria. And so one of those herbal practitioners told me that I need to get the plant that grows on the rock. That's the one that will work. And I could not fathom the scientific explanation, probably maybe because of the environment and then the way the plant will grow. But I'm just trying to highlight that there are some differences that cannot be accounted for by just science. And those are some of the things that makes it difficult for some of the clinical trials to be taking place. And then sometimes in traditional medicine, you find that there is this holistic approach, and you find sometimes one practice is said to cure almost all diseases. For instance, maybe one herbal product or something. And it's difficult to explain from the pathophysiology of diseases that there's a particular drug that can cure almost all diseases, because not all diseases have the same background in terms of how the disease pathology is. And then sometimes it's difficult to fathom how to create placebos for traditional medicine, because sometimes the smells, the placebos have to look exactly alike with the active drug. And sometimes the smells of some of those traditional products and all those things can make it difficult to create placebos. And there are complexities of interventions. You find some traditional practices that are not too conventional. Like, let me give you an example of some traditional practices like bloodletting. So it's difficult to say you want to go to do clinical trials, divide this group to have bloodletting, another one not to have bloodletting. Then we have ethical issues. There are issues that have to do with ethical concerns, and which is difficult in traditional medicine. And then the issue of informed consent, and that's is also a very, very difficult thing. And other issues like biases, is difficult to eliminate bias in traditional medicine because people have some fixed mindsets on certain things, and it's also difficult to get even the traditional practitioners to agree to get into clinical trials. And then the last thing is issue of quality control. Many of these traditional practitioners on their own are the ones who produce these products. They are not produced in regulated environment, so it's difficult to ensure some quality control in this regards. Next slide. Now, like I've said, these are the benefits are enormous, but primarily why it is important for us to do clinical trials for traditional medicine is to avoid untested remedies. You can see a lot of people come out to claim that they have medications for asthma, they have medications for ulcer, have medications for epilepsy. But these things, patients are buying them every day, and we can't stop them from, accessing those medications. But we need to ensure that these things work and they are not harmful to this population, and then to ensure that people are able to get them in a manner that is um, well regulated. So regulation is also important, an important aspect. Next slide. Now, like I've said, the challenges of standardization is one of the reasons why it's difficult to conduct clinical trials. Some of the plants or herbal products that are used, we find that there's variation in the plant species, origin, and preparation, especially, things like ginseng. Ginseng has different varieties, and not all, not the same variety gives the same pharmacological benefit. And like I told you, when I was working with particular plant, I was told you have to go to a place that is rocky, probably maybe because of the um, um, environment and the soil and the content of the soil, because sometimes the plants derive some micro elements from the soil, and that particular part of the soil may be useful. And there's problem of reproducibility. You find it difficult to reproduce the same. Well, for herbal medications is different. But some traditional practices is difficult to reproduce the same kind of traditional practice that is seen in an environment. And then when you look at all those things, there are solutions to it, like technology has availed us the capacity now to study the plants and know their structure, their phytochemical profile, things like chromatography, and then good medicinal practices also, and good manufacturing practices as well. Next slide. So I'm a bit concerned because, like, we know there are so many problems with genetic variations that can affect the plants, and some species can be, you have the same species with different varieties, especially things like ginseng that we use a lot. It's a very good herbal product that has been produced now in capsules, and they are taken by individuals. But a very good drug like ginseng, I can say, has a lot of different types of variety and species. So these are some of the problems, botanical variability. Next slide. Again, like I mentioned, environmental, climate, altitude, all those factors can affect the plants or herbal products that are of consideration. And the season, whether it's rainy season or dry season, affects the yield and harvest or quality, and even the quantity of the active ingredient that we're talking about. So all these factors need to be taken into consideration. Next slide. So, and there are other factors like harvesting and post-harvesting processing, especially when I'm placing more emphasis on herbal products here, because in our own part of the world, the traditional medical practices that are known, like Ayurvedic and others in India and Asia, are not common. What is much more common is the herbal preparations that people use. So there are problems with harvesting and post-harvest processing, including inconsistent maturation stages, poor storage, and poor drying. And because of these poor storage facilities for some of these products, they are at risk of a lot of fungal contaminations, leading to a lot of issues like toxins from the fungal that are called aflatoxins and all those things. And some of those things can be harmful. They are dangerous to the liver and other organs in the body. They can damage the kidneys as well. And some of them can affect the central nervous system. They can cause CNS side effects. Next slide. Now, of course, again, there are also problems with the preparation methods, like some of the methods include infusion, deconcoction, roasting, and whatever. So sometimes a particular herbal practitioner told someone that if you have to take this drug, you have to put it in milk, and this milk had to stay overnight and whatever. But what we gathered is probably the product has to be taken in a medium that is fermented, and like Nora Ria was talking about earlier, and this fermentation has to do with alcohol. So, and some of those things are things that are, difficult to replicate because of differences in the way these things are being prepared. And that affects the bioavailability of the active ingredient and the consistency, because if you have different methods of preparation for the same product, you are not likely going to get the same end product at the end of the day. So next slide. So, and what are the methodological adaptations? With all these problems that I've mentioned, we need to think of how to adapt certain methods to make them user-friendly. Like when we complain about biases, how do we eliminate bias? And part of the ways you can eliminate bias is to blind. And that means that it's going to be a difficult thing, but blinding is one of the ways to eliminate bias. And also use of active comparators. And then in terms of outcomes, we have to use biomedical and patient reported endpoints, because we cannot be able to ascertain using traditional methods whether these things work or not. So we have to use our own modern methods to ascertain if these things are working. That includes using functional and quality of life metrics and all those things to measure some of those things, like medications for maybe sleep, medications for pains, so they are difficult. You just have to use modern quality of life metrics to measure those things. Next slide. So we can also use some observation and observational studies. These observational studies are very useful, actually. Some of them have been used to design clinical trial protocols, or we can use case control studies to ascertain usage and outcomes. For instance, we look at patients who are using particular medications, herbal products, and those who are not using, to see their outcome. That can help us to determine the safety and efficacy. You can follow them over time. So because of issue of ethical issues, now we have patients on their own taking those medications. We can follow them over time and observe whether they have side effects, check their renal function, their blood parameters, and so on and so forth. So things like that can be done. So these are called observational studies as compared to, randomized controlled clinical trials. Next slide. And well, randomized clinical trials may not suit all traditional practices, but they may be useful for some herbal medications. But you can have alternative designs like pragmatic, then use of N of 1, then cluster trials, okay? And there are instances where people do this add-on design to complement conventional therapies. Like I used to see patients who have diabetes, and there are a lot of medications that when people say that this can help reduce blood sugar, we advise them, well, you can use that as an adjunct. So what we do is people who have this disease, they are on their normal conventional medications. You can now add these therapies to them and look at those who are not on those add-on therapies to see if there are any differences. That can help you overcome some of those ethical issues and problems associated with some of those use of some of those herbal products. Next slide. So in doing all those things, we have to also be careful with ethical and cultural consideration, and then we need to engage our community leaders, because most of these traditional herbal practitioners are in the community and they are well respected in the community. People believe that they get benefit from what these people are giving them. So you need to involve traditional rulers and practitioners. And then informed consent have to be tailored for some procedures. For medications, it's usually a straightforward thing, but there are some traditional practices and procedures that informed consent has to be tailored. And that we need to remember that we need to protect indigenous knowledge and benefits, because there's benefit in sharing those knowledge, because this knowledge has been passed from generation to generation. I'm not saying that all of them are beneficial or useful, but there are some that are likely to be useful, because like we're talking about observational studies, our own people have over the time used a lot of these products, and by observation they have realized those that are useful and those that are harmful or not too useful to them. Next slide. Now, the other issue is the issue of regulatory framework and institutional frameworks. Currently, we don't have good herbal guidelines in many African countries. And you can see that even in Nigeria, most people come get registered their product for their safety, and we don't know whether they're efficacious, but they go around to claim in parks and areas where people are not well enlightened that they have registration from the regulatory body. But there are opportunities because the WHO traditional medicine strategy and national policy development is in place, and there's also need to retrain and train and retrain, because it's not enough to train and just maintain your reviewers and dedicated research centers. We have them, but they have to be continuously be retraining them to make sure that they're updated with whatever knowledge that is available. Next slide. I think I saw this sometimes like few weeks ago, probably about 2 weeks ago, when NAFDAC is saying that these herbal products need to undergo clinical trials in order to get approval for their efficacy. I mean, this was shared in here by Noria. She made mention to that with respect to that. Next slide. So I we just want to inform you that even in Nigeria, there are few studies that have been done with respect to traditional medicine. There is this drug that is used in treating patients with sickle cell disease that is called niprisan. Niprisan was developed from traditional herbal medicines in Nigeria. And then there are a lot of interest from our regulatory agencies, the NAFDAC and National Institute for Pharmaceutical Research. And we also have seen that in India and China, traditional complementary medicines have gone through a lot of clinical trials, because I mean, I teach students traditional and complementary medicine as a course, and I've seen clinical trials where some of those practices have undergone trials. Some have been found to be useful, some have been found not to be useful, some have been found to be harmful. So we identify those that are useful, and we'll continue to develop that and propagate that for our population, for people to benefit. Next slide. Now, the pathway forward from all the things I've said today is that we need to have clinical trials for our traditional practices and traditional medicines, but we need to adapt clinical trial. And a very good way to do this to do clinical trials for traditional medicine is what we're actually doing here today, collaborative partnerships. There are a lot of institutes or centers that are involved in one way or the other. And I think just a group of individuals alone cannot be able to do it. We need to collaborate, we need to work together, and there should be greater investment in research and quality control to advance integration of traditional medicine. Our researchers must also develop study designs that are specifically tailored for this traditional medicine, not to use what has been developed for the orthodox medicine strictly and just hook, line, and sinker, force it onto the traditional medicine. It will not work. And a whole system approach is important. Next slide. I think to conclude, I can say that the clinical traditional medicines should undergo clinical trials, and there's feasibility with clear scientific and ethical adaptations. And then trials can enhance trust and integration. Many of the people who are taking these drugs are taking it, they don't really know whether it's working or not. But once there are studies that have shown that these things are working, they will be convinced. Like if I give a patient who has a prostate problem so palmetto, and I'm sure that studies have shown that this is very effective, and the patients are going to be happy. So I think I have just one more slide, next slide, to just ask these questions and allow this is just my own teaser actually for this thing, because it's supposed to be a panel discussion. And my question is, can our traditional healers be trial investigators? Which is a very good question. And what role does a placebo play in herbal trials? And the last question is, how do we prioritize our traditional remedies for testing? Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be part of this discussion, and I'm delighted to be part of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Mentor. That was, yes. Thank you so much. That was very enlightening. Thank you so much. That's Dr. Mentor. He's a physician scientist, clinical pharmacologist, and metabolic medicine. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We have a couple of questions, but we'll wait to the end so that we can discuss all the questions that we have together. So I'm going to welcome the second speaker. Um, please, Mrs. Monica, kindly pardon me with the way I'll be pronouncing your name, Monica Ahedome. I hope I got that right. She's a
Yes,
PhD
that's
candidate.
fine.
Okay, thank you very much. PhD candidate in clinical microbiology, and she's from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Ghana. She's taking us on the topic, the scientific feasibility and regulatory policy issues of bringing traditional medicine into clinical research. We are glad to have you. Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much. Good evening from my end because it's already evening here, I believe. I'm greeting rightly. So good evening from my end, and thank you very much for the honor to speak on
Good
this
evening.
important topic this evening. It's cold here in Ghana. I'm still at work. It's cold. It has been raining throughout the day, so the place is cold. Okay, so as she has already said, I will be speaking on the topic scientific feasibility and regulatory or policy issues of bringing traditional medicine into clinical research. She has already introduced me. My name is Monica Nyadom. I'm currently speaking from University of Health and Allied Sciences, Ghana. Thank you so much. Next slide, please. So before we delve into the feasibility and the policy aspect, I want us to look at traditional medicine in global health perspective. When we talk about traditional medicine, it remains a very important component of primary healthcare for billions worldwide. According to the World Health Organization, more than 80% of the entire population, that is so huge, rely on one or two traditional medicine for its primary health care. So given this widespread use, traditional medicine can never be left outside the scope of scientific evaluation. We must rather ensure that these therapies are safe, very effective, and of consistent quality before we integrate them into our modern health systems. So, as I have already said, reliance on this traditional medicine alone does not guarantee that it is safe. So we have to let them undergo clinical trial to ensure that whatever the community people, including you and I, we are using is very safe, is efficacious, and the dosage is standard. So clinical research ensure that we test this efficacy, safety, and the standardization of the dosage. Next slide, please. So before we delve into the feasibility and the policy, I want us to first clarify what traditional medicine is and how we can compare it to conventional or orthodox medicine. So when we talk about traditional medicine, we are talking about the treatment is holistic. When we talk about holistic, it's targeting the balance of the body, the mind, and the spirit. But when we talk about conventional medicine, which is biomedical, it targets specific disease mechanism. And the basis of traditional medicine is community wisdom, cultural practices. My forefathers have been using neem tree to cure malaria. So it's cultural practice and community wisdom. But when we talk about conventional medicine, it's based on laboratory and clinical evidence. And our traditional medicine is about experience, as I have already said. We all attest to the fact that our forefathers, we are all Africans, our forefathers have been using traditional medicine, so it's based on experience. Our parents have used it, it works. So that is it. But when we talk about conventional medicine, it's about evidence-based. And for the regulation, it varies, or it is informal. Hello, am I loud and clear, please? Hello?
Sorry
Yes, we
about that.
can hear
Please
you
carry
now.
on.
Okay, so when we talk about the regulation of our traditional medicine, it varies and it is informal, but for our conventional medicine, it is strict, standardized. Next slide, please. So the question is, why should we evaluate traditional medicine scientifically? We must understand that subjecting our traditional medicine to clinical research is not about undermining our culture. It is about protecting our communities, ensuring that the drug that they are taking is safe to use. It also helps us to validate therapeutic benefit through scientific testing. And also, it builds public and professional trust for integrating this traditional medicine into healthcare system and promote responsible dosage and toxicity monitoring. Finally, it protects the indigenous knowledge because traditional medicine is about community knowledge. It's not about individual knowledge, it's about community knowledge. So testing it will protect the community knowledge through protocol, which we call the Nagoya Protocol. Can we, next slide, please? So let's delve into the feasibility. The question is it feasible to subject our traditional medications into clinical trial? Of course, yes, but there should be some adaptability. So first, let's look at some opportunities that exist. As I have already said, and the first speaker who have already mentioned it, almost everyone under the world uses some form of traditional medicine as a healthcare practice. So there is already data that exists. So there is widespread community use that provides strong foundation for us to study this traditional medicine. Moreover, there is also modern tools that exist that can analyze these herbal compounds precisely and accurately. Also, there are clinical trial adaptations that can be employed to reflect the real-world traditional practices. Therefore, traditional medicine can be studied when science adapts to context. Next slide, please. So we have looked at the opportunity that exists in subjecting our traditional medicine to clinical trials. But even though the opportunities exist, challenges are also paramount. Our first speaker mentioned standardization. This is a very important challenge that exists when it comes to clinical trial in traditional medicine. The reason is that our traditional remedies vary by region. The preparation method, the dosage, even the soil in which the plant is being planted could lead to the problem about standardization. Also, there is complexity when it comes to subjecting our traditional medicine into clinical trial because of the multi-herbal and the ritual-based therapies that exist that resist single drug models. Another issue is about the cultural sensitivity of our traditional medicine. It requires community collaboration and respect. Finally, as our first speaker said, the placebo design is also another huge challenge when it comes to a clinical trial in traditional medicine. This is because of the taste, the unique taste of our traditional medicine, the aroma that exists, and it is very difficult to plan clinical trial that you have to include placebo to be able to mimic this unique taste and aroma of our herbal medications. Therefore, innovative methodologies are very much needed to ensure credibility and ethical results of our clinical trials in our traditional medicine. Next slide, please. So we have spoke about the opportunities that exist, the challenges that exist when it comes to subjecting our traditional medicine and the clinical trial. So let's look at the feasibility approaches, the pathways to reliable traditional medicine research. So our traditional medicine has to go through rigorous preclinical testing to determine biological activity. When I talk about biological activity, what I'm trying to say is that we have to do preclinical training or testing of our herbs to ensure that whatever that our community members, people are taking, it has biological activity. For example, antifungal, antimicrobial, antiviral, and what have we. And also, we have to employ clinical trials, which include adaptive and pragmatic trials that mirror community use. Finally, there should be collaboration between the traditional healers, those who own the information, to ensure that there is respect and acceptability of subjecting our traditional medicine into clinical trials. So scientific validation of traditional medicine is very achievable. The key is collaboration and adaptation. Next slide, please. So case example, our first presenter have already mentioned some example, including artemisinin, that we all know that has brought a lot of relief worldwide in terms of treating malaria. This medicine is derived from Artemisia annua, which is a Chinese traditional medicine herb. Through rigorous scientific research, this herb was validated and it becomes the world-leading malaria treatment, which has earned a Nobel Award in medicine in the year 2015. So that, therefore, there is a proof that traditional knowledge can transform global health based on this successful study about artemisinin drug that cures malaria. Next slide, please. So let's look at the regulatory and policy frameworks. So what are the regulatory and policy frameworks that exist? First, the World Health Organization traditional medicine strategies exist to encourage evidence-based integration of traditional medicine into our clinical practice. Currently, more than 100 countries now have traditional medicine policies or frameworks. And mature systems exist, which include China, India, and South Africa. They already have strong institutional models when it comes to traditional medicine practice. When we come to our Africa context, countries like Ghana, my country, Nigeria, South Africa, they have emerging national regulations to guide traditional medicine practice. So regulation ensures that our traditional medicine is safe, there is equity, and there is global collaboration. Next slide, please. So let's talk about the ethical and legal dimensions when it comes to traditional subjecting our traditional medicine into clinical trial. I have already mentioned Nagoya Protocol. When we look at this protocol, the Article 5 and 7 and 12 emphasize that there should be prior consent of those who hold this knowledge in the communities. And there should be an agreement between the scientists and those who hold this knowledge in the community with regards to equitable benefit sharing with indigenous communities. Also, this protocol emphasizes the intellectual property. As I have already mentioned, traditional medicine knowledge is community-owned. It's not individual-owned like conventional medicine. Therefore, intellectual property exists to protect, for protection, which protect and prevent biopiracy. Next slide, please. So let's talk about the pharmacovigilance and safety monitoring. When we talk about pharmacovigilance, this means we are ensuring safety of this traditional medicine that our community members have been using. So currently, many countries lack systems that ensure monitoring of traditional medicine products to ensure that whatever that the community members are taking is very safe. Therefore, there is a need for integration of our traditional medicine into national pharmacovigilance frameworks so that whatever that our people are taking is safe. And there should be some regular monitoring of adverse events as well as drug interactions. And there should be, we have to build public trust and protect our patients' safety. Those who are taking this traditional medicine, our pharmacovigilance and safety monitoring will build public trust and protect patient safety. Next slide, please. So let's talk about barriers to integration of our traditional medicine into modern system. A lot of barriers exist, but for the benefit of our discussion this evening, I will emphasize on 4. There is limited collaboration that exists between the scientists, the biomedical scientists, the clinicians, as well as the traditional healers that owns this knowledge in the communities. Also, there is skepticism when it comes to traditional medicine because of the different view when it comes to traditional medicine between the scientists as well as the traditional healers. There is a lot of gap that exists in terms of education and mutual respect between the practitioners, that is the clinicians, the biomedical scientists, as well as the traditional practitioners in the community. And finally, there is weak regulatory capacity that exists. And also there is a lack of research funding. Next slide, please. So what is the policy way forward here? So moving toward responsible integration, we have to develop harmonization of research and regulatory standards that is tailored to traditional medicine. We have to also establish regional, national research and training centers of excellence, including the African Union and World Health Organization-led initiatives. We must also promote balanced policies that uphold scientific rigor, cultural respect, as well as community rights. We must also ensure inclusiveness, partnership that should exist between the scientists, the policymakers, the regulators, as well as the traditional healers. This is very important. Next slide, please. So finally, what is the key takeaway that we have to from this lecture that we are having this evening? As I have already indicated, also from our first speaker, almost everyone uses traditional medicine in one way or the other. If a World Health Organization is saying that 80% of the population uses traditional medicine, that implies that almost everyone uses traditional medicine. So it is very important. It is too important for us to ignore traditional medicine. We can't leave traditional medicine untested. The time is right. The time is now for us to ensure that we test the traditional medicine that we are using. Clinical research is scientifically feasible. The question is whether it is feasible. It is feasible and ethically essential. The regulation must ensure that there is safety, there is trust, as well as there is fair benefit sharing between the scientists and those who own the traditional healers, who own this knowledge in their communities. And finally, the future of health depends on bridging tradition and science into place. So finally, I have to say that the future of global health depends not on choosing between tradition and science, but on how wisely we weave them together. Next slide. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was quite insightful. Thank you so much, Dr. Monica Idome. It was really insightful what you have uh, shared with us this evening. Thank you so much. So if we have questions for Dr. Monica, please kindly go to the chat and put your questions there, and we'll review everything at the end of the teaching. So now we are going to invite one of, she's actually a part of our team and advisory board member, Dr. Joy Oladimeji Salami. She's the Assistant Director of Research at the National Biotech Research and Development Agency, Abuja. And she's going to take us on the topic, the dosage, drug-to-drug interactions, and the ethical responsibility of testing traditional medicine. Thank you so much. Please, over to you, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. It's
Good
been
evening.
it's been an interesting, listening pleasure the past almost an hour. So thank you to the entire team for inviting me to speak on a topic I'm quite passionate about. So to speak on the aspect on dosage, drug-drug interactions, and the ethical responsibility of testing remedies rooted in culture. Now, my first starting statement would be that the ultimate goal of this discussion is to make sure there is a balance between science, technology, safety, and cultural respect. We all need to bear that in mind. Next, from a pharmacologist's point of view, a drug is any chemical substance that alters biological functions. It can be used to diagnose, treat, or prevent diseases. They could be synthetic, semi-synthetic, or natural. Now, as we all know, traditional remedies will fall under the natural drugs. So the question now is should we subject them to clinical trials? We'll be able to arrive at that, the answer to that by the time we finish our discussion today. So Paracelsus said that all things are poison. Nothing is without poison. The dosage alone makes it so that a thing is not a poison. What does that mean? Something being a poison is subject to the dose, which means water can be a poison. So if water that we all readily take every day can be a poison, how much more medicinal plants that we take in? I think if we come at that angle to many people, they will begin to see reasons why medicinal plants, traditional medicine should be subjected to clinical testing. Now, ethically, pharmacology requires you to quantify active ingredients and also ascertain safe therapeutic ranges for which you are to take any. Okay, thank you very much. For which you are to take any drug, whether medicinal, whether natural, whatever. You're supposed to only administer quantified doses, because if you don't do that, you're beginning to violate the safety ethics for that patient. So if we notice, most of our traditional remedies most times comes in non-standardized measures. And this has been the major reason why a lot of the clinicians do not want to adopt the use of medicinal plants, because it's very important that we recognize the fact that for traditional medicine to be integrated into the mainstream health sector, clinicians need to be on board. If they do not have that trust, they will stand, because there's a role of policy in all our discussions, and most times they are always at the table, where these policies are being made. So if we next slide, please. Now, at the core, the previous slides, sorry, at the core of pharmacology, previous slide, yes, safety is a major issue. At the core of pharmacology, safety is a major issue together. So at the core of pharmacology, safety is a major issue. We want to always make sure that there is always safety is something you factor in, while you are also, there has to be a benefit risk assessment done before you administer any drug, and in this case, traditional medicines. So we have found out that there are many traditional medicines that, while they are quite beneficial, in some cases, they may be beneficial in small doses, and they could be potentially toxic or even lethal, resulting in death in higher doses. Now, if we do not find a way to standardize the doses, this will be a major issue. For example, we all take bitter leaf. I'm using plants that many of us are quite conversant with. Bitter leaf is used for treating malaria. So you hear, oh, just go and cut it and soak it in water, squeeze the juice and just drink. And many people are taking it daily. But this is a plant that If you take it in excess, it can cause diarrhea. Now, many people have experienced the diarrhea and they assume that is part of the medicinal effect, but it is actually a toxic effect of that plant. Also, you look at scent leaf. This is another leaf that everybody, once my blood sugar is high, just go and take scent leaf, it will normalize it. And in high doses, it can cause liver enzymes elevation. And we all know we don't have 2 livers, it's just one. So if you damage it, that's it. Next slide, please. So let's look at some of the various possible toxic effects or adverse events that could have been associated with medicinal plants. We are looking at gastrointestinal distress, which is what I mentioned with bitter leaf, stooling. And you think it's a beneficial effect. It's not. You're not supposed to be stooling uncontrollably. Everything in our system is in homeostasis. There's a balance. So when it's in excess, it's a problem. It's not supposed to be that way. We look at cardiotoxicity. We look at neurotoxicity, something affecting the nervous system, the liver. And it's very important to know that presently in Nigeria, we are dealing with high cases of nephrotoxicity. There's an increase in the kidney failure within the country. And this may be a contributing factor. So it's something that this topic is so important at this point in time within the country and within the continent as a whole. Then we have allergic reactions. I have a plant in my compound that I discovered that once it touches your body, you begin to itch. It's an adverse effect. But someone will tell me, oh, it's part of it's a good thing. It's not. And if people don't document this and factor it in the usage, there's going to be a problem. So there are various types of toxicities and adverse events that could occur. And these are things that necessitates why medicinal plants, traditional medicine needs to be, undergo clinical trials. Next slide, please. Now, what are the toxicological considerations? Typically, you need to look at preclinical safety at different time windows. The acute within 24 to 48 hours, subacute, which is for weeks, subchronic for months. You need to look at what could happen if someone is exposed to this particular plant within 1 day, within a week, within months, because we have people who take these drugs, these plants. In fact, there are people who take many of these leaves every day. And there are toxicological considerations that should be put in place, in assessing these drugs. Then we have estimation or determination of the dose that will be safe for human consumption. Now, no matter how much preclinical studies we do in animals, this particular aspect of determining the safe human dose is usually, finalized during the clinical trials. There is no drug, unfortunately, that's part of the phases that the dose is finalized until after it has been subjected to one of the phases of clinical trials in humans. So no matter what they've done in animals, they must still come back to humans to ascertain. And usually it's at that point that benefit risk is assessed. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Now, I'd like us to just look at this table. No, previous slide, please. If we look at this table, it's telling us, yes, if we look at that table, it's telling us about, what is the outcome for every stage of, assessing the importance or the efficacy or toxicity of any medicinal plant. Now, I'd like us to particularly go to that aspect, the third line, which looks at animal studies. Now, like I said, animal studies will basically look at toxicity and efficacy. Is it working? What are the possible side effects at very high doses, effective doses and at subtherapeutic doses? That is a dose that is not producing the required dose response that you're expecting, the therapeutic outcome that you're expecting. You need to look at what happens in all those cases. And then that's when we start looking at terms like LD50, the lethal dose in 50% of the population, the effective dose in 50% of the population, and the dose that does not even produce any effective response. These are all things we look at. Then we look at the human trials. Whether we like it or not, many of us have become human. We have become subjects for many of these medicinal plants. So why don't we just decide to make it official? We have all been over the years. Let's just make it official once and for all. Let's test the safety, the efficacy, and determine the therapeutic window, because it will do a whole lot to help us. Then of course, we look at the post-marketing. That's where I said the real world dose validation is done, not before. So can we just decide to make this official? Like I said, policy is a major issue in this aspect. Next slide, please. Now, this is another interesting aspect, drug-drug interactions. Polypharmacy is here to stay. We have a number of people who are taking different medications, whether prescribed or not, within this country and within Africa. And because of how intricate drug-drug interactions take place, it's a major area that we need more research being done, particularly with respect to traditional medicine. No matter how safe a drug is or a traditional medicine is, when it comes to drug-drug interactions, there's a whole lot that could happen. I loved what you said when you mentioned pharmacodynamics, pharmacokinetics, what the drug does to the body, what the body does to the drug. And if you now look at those two aspects, there's a whole range of things that could happen because the body has so many systems working at the same time. So there's a whole lot of risk. Now, combining herbal medicines with orthodox drugs is another thing that is quite common and is under the radar. Many people are taking, ginger, turmeric, and they said, no, they are just food. Every food is a medicine. Every food is a medicine. So, so do you know the interactions it may be having with the conventional medications you're taking? These are all areas of research that is still underexplored within this country and within Africa and in many parts of the world, I dare say. There are risk, altered metabolism, additive effects, where two drugs that are seemingly unrelated are able to produce joint, and that is even the safe aspect. There is also potentiation, whereby there is multiplication of the possible response to that particular combination. And these are things that, we need to really talk about in the area of clinical research. Then everything ends up in possibly increased toxicity or even increased efficacy. They are both two sides of the coin. So traditional medicine must be screened, and the risk should also be communicated ethically. Next slide, please. Now, I'm looking at some examples here of conventional, the things we eat daily. Let me use that word, eat. Traditional medicines that we take daily. Bitter leaf can react with anti-malarials and possibly drop your blood sugar level so low. So you took bitter leaf and you were given probably chloroquine or another anti-malaria, and you kept wondering why you were feeling dizzy. Your blood sugar probably dipped. You can imagine this is how common it is. Or you look at garlic. Garlic is taken by many people, but there's an increased risk of bleeding when it is taken with aspirin. So many of the cases of ulcer that we're having these days could be as a result of this combination. Many people take on non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. They are readily accessible over the counter. You don't need a prescription to get it. You just walk into any pharmacy and you will get it. So this is a major issue. Another example is neem. dogoyaro leaves, if you take it with another anti-malaria, it may reduce the efficacy of that anti-malaria. And then you mentioned ginseng, and ginkgo biloba, it can increase bleeding if taken with warfarin. So, and people are taking these plants, and their doctor who is prescribing the conventional medications may not be aware, because who tells the doctor everything, in quotes? So these are issues that clinical trials would help in identifying. Next slide, please. So ethically, what are the principles we need to consider in terms of drug evaluation? And in this case, traditional medicines evaluation. Beneficence. You have to make sure it is maximizing the patient's well-being. I love what the previous presenter mentioned. She talked about some of these things. And I realized that most times, even though money may be a determinant factor from the point of the pharmaceutical industry, but I feel that when there are clinical trials that have a whole range of different professionals on board the team, some of these things can be tackled. So we also have non-maleficence, which says that you must avoid harm. You must avoid harm. We have autonomy, respecting the traditional knowledge and cultural beliefs of the people. They won't tell you everything, because they have this assumption that you will steal their knowledge and sell it without recognizing them or without them being paid. So most of the time, when you approach the traditional medicine practitioners, they only give you half of the information. They don't give you the entire information. Another thing that I should have mentioned in my previous slide is that even in traditional medicine, you have a lot of polypharmacy. Rarely do you have them giving you just one plant. There is always a combination of plants, different parts of one plant. So these are issues, and that's one of the things that made me have interest in mixture, in toxicity of mixtures, because I realized that there is rarely any poison that exists in alone. They usually exist in mixtures, in the environment, in our food, in everything. They exist as mixtures. So you need to identify what is it in this mixture that is going to cause, the most lethal effect or the most toxic effect. Then of course we need to look at the aspect of integrity. One of the major hallmarks of research is that there must be reproducibility, whereby every research being done, if we do that research again in the same conditions, and that's why you would have one of the things we were taught when I was an undergraduate is, when you go to the traditional medicine practitioners, you ask them, how do they use it? And the first thing you must do is you must prepare it in the way they use it before you start tweaking it. So at some point, trust and integrity must come to play. So using scientific methods, you must be very transparent. Next slide, please. So it is your responsibility to make sure you obtain. I'm happy the previous presenter had already discussed some of this, but all this is to make sure that it will avoid exploitation and ensure that you uphold the dignity of the traditional knowledge. Because most of the time they are passed down from generation to generation by word of knowledge. I attended a workshop, a fair last year, and I was so happy when the Natural Medicines Agency in Nigeria, they came with some of their pharmacopoeias that they had been, documenting many of the medicinal plants within the country. But it's one of the things that my agency is also working on. We have over 35 centers within the country in different geopolitical zones. So one of the things that is our mandate is to ensure that we are documenting the bioresource, of which medicinal plants are a bioresource. They are documenting them, and it's an ongoing work. that we are doing. Next slide, please. So, next slide, please. So, I'm going to conclude by saying this. Should traditional medicine be tested? Yes, but we must do it with cultural sensitivity and ethical oversight. And what this means is that for every clinical trial that needs to be done on traditional medicine, the pharmacist should be on board, the doctors should be on board, the pharmacologist should be on board, the bioethicists should be on board, the social workers should be on board. We assume it's just those in the biomedicals, then the traditional medicine practitioners should be on board. They have a way of speaking with their people who are using this medication and getting information that you would not, because of the language barrier, sometimes you would not readily get. So these are things that we need to put in place. So why do I think it should be done, as in the traditional, why do I think it should be tested? To confirm safety, to confirm efficacy, to protect the public, protect the people, to build trust. They have not had trust they don't even trust conventional medicine, not to talk of, traditional medicines, particularly if it's coming from the conventional practitioners. Do we understand? There's a difference when it's coming from the traditional practitioners and when it's coming from the conventional practitioners. There are two different ball games. And of course, at the end of the day, by the time we are able to conduct traditional, it will enable even the doctors, the practitioners of conventional medicine to be willing to allow the integration. Because, I mentioned at some point that policy is a major issue in this matter. No matter what research is done, if the conventional medicine practitioners are not on board, it will not be integrated. There will be no policy, and there must be government buying. The reason it's successful in China and many of those other countries, because the government, you can walk into a hospital and they will ask you, which one do you want, conventional or unorthodox? And you're allowed to choose, and whichever one you choose, you will be given your medication there in the hospital. You're not going out. But here, we don't readily have that available. In fact, the trust is so broken down that a patient cannot confess. I'll tell a short story. When I was nursing one of my babies, I took her to the primary healthcare center, and a woman came in and we were having a conversation. And she was talking about how if you're having difficulty lactating, please take palm wine. And we're listening to her now. In my mind, I was thinking that this woman will get herself into trouble today. 20 minutes later, the nurse comes in and then somebody tells the nurse, Emma, this woman said we can take palm wine for lactation. My goodness, this woman denied flat, as in the way she denied, I was in shock. She said, no, they misheard her. And we were all like, and the nurse was like, if it were true, she will not her baby will not collect the vaccine that day. And I was like, wow. So that scenario tells me that if you go to the doctors might not get the full story from the patient. So the formula for success would have to be science, plus ethics, plus culture, plus policy. And this will result in safe, trusted traditional medicine. Thank you.
So much. Thank you so much, ma. That was super insightful. Thank you so, so much. That's Dr. Joy all the way from NAFDA, Abuja. Thank you so much. Thank you. So if we have any questions, yes, I see you're clapping. If you want to do that, you can keep doing that. Okay. So if you have any questions for Dr. Joy, please leave them in the chat while we go to the other speaker. Then at the end of the teaching, we'll this is the question. So right now we are having Dr. Sarif Islam is going to be taking us on regulatory considerations and how traditional medicine could be integrated into modern healthcare. And it's from West Bengal Chemical Industries Limited, India. Is a clinical research associate. Good to have you. Thank you so much. You have the floor.
Yeah, hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Yeah. So today I will be basically discussing about regulatory considerations and how traditional medicine could be integrated into modern healthcare. So before I start, so I will be basically discussing firstly about the traditional medicine and the modern medicine. So when we talk about traditional medicine, we basically think about the herbs, the medicines which we basically obtain from plants. And now when we go to modern medicine, the basically we think about drugs. So there is a basic key difference in these two, which is one, which is drug, which is scientifically proven, clinically proven, which we basically obtain by doing the clinical trials. But in case of traditional medicine, we basically, when we talk about neem or tulsi or any herbs, we don't undergo any type of clinical trials. So we can say that it is scientifically proven. So in today's topic, we will be knowing about how we can integrate the traditional medicine with modern medicine. So now let us know why this integration matters. So firstly, there is a rising global interest in holistic healing. Then we have cost effectiveness and culturally acceptable care. And lastly, WHO also encourages integration of traditional systems in national health. Now, coming to the current scenario, which is traditional medicine plays a key role in primary healthcare for over 80% of the global population, as per the WHO. However, issues like lack of documentation, inconsistent formulation, and unregulated products remain challenges. In today's time, growing market for herbal and complementary products needs oversight to prevent misuse or adulteration. See, basically, this adulteration in India, there has been wide adulteration of herbal products. In India, we have Ministry of Ayush, for which all the herbal products like Ayurveda, Unani, and others are basically maintained by the Ministry of Ayush, who basically look after the import, export, and any other like misuse or adulteration. So now we are coming to the regulatory considerations. So first and utmost point is the product registration and quality control. So if we are planning for any product such as herbal products, so first and most we have to do a registration of the product. So if we are registering a product, we have to look after the regulatory guidelines. If in Nigeria we are registering a product, we need to see the guidelines. What are the guidelines for registering a product by NAFDAC, basically? Then we have to see the good manufacturing practice and good laboratory practice need to followed for the product. And then we also have to see that the product is free from toxic substances and clearly labeled with ingredients and dosage, such as that we have to make sure that if it is a herbal or in traditional medicine, so we have to see that all the ingredients which have been used has to be mentioned and also the dosage needs to be mentioned. Then we come to the efficacy and safety validation. For this, we need to have a scientific validation of the products. Then we have preclinical and clinical testing. In preclinical, we have to see the toxicity of the traditional medicine. We have to see the pharmacokinetics of the traditional medicine. We have to see the pharmacodynamics of the traditional medicine. Then if the traditional medicine passes these steps, then we have to move towards the clinical testing where we have the phases, and then we need to move towards the intellectual property. See, so how we can maintain this? This can be only done by protecting the indigenous knowledge through patents and geographical indications. Next, we need to do education, licensing, training. We need to train we need to have our basically the regulatory bodies need to train regarding this kind of product registration and all quality control. Then we need our regulatory body basically for the monitoring and post-marketing surveillance. So regulatory body needs to monitor whatever the activities are being carried out for this traditional medicine and post-marketing surveillance means the regulatory body needs to set up the pharmacovigilance centers. So from where all the adverse drug reactions or adverse event can be reported to the pharmacovigilance center. Then lastly, we will basically know the integration strategies into modern healthcare, which means that how the traditional medicine can be integrated with modern healthcare. Some of the strategies like policy and institutional collaboration. So we need to develop national policies that promote inclusion of traditional medicine in healthcare delivery. We need to see that hospitals have some integrated departments, such as like if there is allopathy, we can combine with homeopathy. Allopathy we can combine with Ayurveda. Allopathy with other some traditional medicine departments. Then we need to promote the research and documentation. We need to encourage that clinical research are being carried out in traditional medicine. Then we need to ensure that in during the clinical research, all the documentation are followed as per the good documentation practices, such as like ALQA principles are being followed. Then we have to promote the curriculum and education, such as like we need to implement traditional medicine in the curriculum of the bachelors. If we have like bachelors of pharmacy or bachelors in pharmacology, we need to implement the traditional medicine, all the like curriculums. Then we from that we can like educate people towards the we can educate students towards the traditional medicine. Then we need to promote the standardization and evidence-based practice, like developing the pharmacopoeias and formularies for traditional medicine. That we basically know that there are pharmacopoeias, national formularies like British Pharmacopoeia, Indian Pharmacopoeia, United States Pharmacopoeia for drugs. Then lastly, we need to ensure that there is public awareness, like educating consumers about safe use of traditional medicine. So basically, I will lastly conclude that there is a very need for the traditional medicine to be integrated with modern healthcare, because there are many medicines in the market where suppose like if we are doing a formulation in a cream. So in that cream, if we are formulating a cream of for traditional medicine, there is a need for a cream base. So if we go for a cream base, we will see that there, if we are making a cream base, we will see that there is a use of modern medicine. And when we are looking for the drug, like the active pharmaceutical ingredient, then we will see there is a need for traditional medicine. So it is essential that we need to ensure that both the traditional medicine and modern medicine are required individually. So that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cyrus. That was very insightful. Thank you so much. All the way from West Bengal Chemical Industries Limited, India. Thank you so much for honoring our invite. So we go to the next speaker. We have Comfort Philip Jaffet from NABDA, also National Biotech Research and Development Agency, Abuja. She's a research officer and she's taking us on the topic, the cultural and community context, as well as the public health impact of testing traditional medicine. Comfort, are you ready for us? Please go ahead, ma'am.
Afternoon, evening, depending on your time zone. I want to appreciate the United Clinical Trial Support Services for the opportunity to share my little knowledge, about traditional medicine. Traditional medicine, represent the earliest form of healthcare globally. We all know. This traditional medicine is rooted in our culture, historical practices of many communities, and it reflects the wisdom and knowledge that has been passed down through generations. Growing up, I used to see mothers suiting the sore mouth of their kids with ripe tomato. Unknown to them, tomato is rich with vitamin C, and this vitamin C, scurvy, they are using it to cure scurvy, which is a deficiency of vitamin C. So it's rooted in our culture. When you ask them, they will tell you that they saw their mothers using that. So it's something that is passed through generation. And so preserving and respecting this cultural tradition are critical to maintaining the identity and heritage of the World Health Organization. Has basic two goals, on this traditional medicine. The goals are to support member states in harnessing the potential contribution of traditional and complementary medicine to health, wellness, and person-centered healthcare, and also promoting the safe and effective use of this traditional complementary medicine through the regulation of product, practices, and practitioners. So the goal of this all is that bridging ancestral wisdom, we all said it, the professional have said it, is bridging ancestral wisdom with biomedical sciences. So we are not doing away with the traditional medicine, but we are bridging the gap that existed. Next slide, please. Next. So traditional medicines and science discovery, most of the speakers that spoke before me have said that, traditional medicine, many modern drugs, originated from that. And we've mentioned them, some like artemisinin, which is from Artemisia annua, some asparagine, quinine, metformin, they are ethnobotanical roots. So traditional medicine reflects centuries of community-based clinical observation. I heard Dr. Mansour talked about it, or if I'm not mistaken, the traditional practitioners, their own is observation. Okay, after taking this medication, what really happened? But scientific validation, you ensure the safety, the efficacy, and the dosage accuracy. So you are conscious of that in the laboratory before you can pass it. Next slide, please. Yes, I just want to take us a little bit from flow of preclinical framework for testing this traditional medicine. I've put in a table here, phases, what happens at each phases, and the core goal of each phase. I'm focusing on, sorry, I'm supposed to say that earlier. I'm focusing on the cultural, the community context, as well as the public health impact of this traditional medicine. And my phase one, which is the community engagement, is very key. Talking to these local healers, when you go to the community, first of all, before you go into the preclinical trial, which has to do with animals, in vitro, in vivo, you have to go to the community to have engagement with these traditional practitioners. Okay, this particular plant has this. Okay, how do you harvest it? You have to take that, you have to understand it from them. Okay, the preparation, the informed consent. Somebody talked about the traditional uh, rulers. They are partners in that. The community are partners in this. So first of all, you have to go to the traditional rulers where they are linked to the traditional healers. Okay, in order to have some engagement with them to understand this procedure, and the goal is to preserve knowledge. You at the same time you are helping them to document things, to preserve those knowledge that they have and ensure ethics. The second one phase is documentation and collection, where you documented the plant herbarium, and you have to take into cognizance where that plant is being collected. These days we use GPS to know the particular point where that plant is being collected for for you to replicate that research at the end of the day. So you have to be conscious of that. And at the same time, the goal is to ensure conservation. So there is standardization, that is quality control. The goal there is to ensure safety and consistency. Then you go to the lab analysis. I mentioned earlier, like lab analysis, which has to do with in vitro. If we look at diabetes, for example, that plant in question, if it's for diabetes, okay, you check in vitro, like the alpha amylase, alpha glucosidase, the carbohydrate digestive enzymes, whether those plants inhibit their activities. You also do in vivo with rat models to check, after inducing diabetes to them with streptozotocin or alloxan, any diabetic agent that you may want to use. So you go through that, and then there is phase of in silico. At the same time, you use in silico computational method, to check the toxicity and everything. So it flows down to that before, and you have to ensure safety. We have all said it all: safety and the efficacy, the effectiveness of that particular compound or the dose or the medication, the plant extract you are using. So it has to pass through that. Then you go into proper clinical trial, of which my professors in the field here have uh, done justice to that. And then integration, where it's being integrated into the market. And then we have pharmacovigilance, where you go for long-term adverse effect. Next slide, please. So I look at this one, cultural context of testing traditional medicine. Like we said earlier, this traditional medicine is intertwined within with identity, is the spirituality and social structure of a particular community. So you have to know that. And so preserving and respecting this cultural tradition are critical to maintaining the identity and heritage of a community. So you respect the culture, the ownership of the knowledge. I have mentioned earlier, I said you engage with them, you understand their own context of what they do, how they do it. Like harvesting, okay, when collecting that plant sample for preparation, how do they do it? You hear some of them telling you, our forefathers said we take it, we harvest it in the middle of the night. And so you are not to dispute their own counteract their own information or knowledge, but you just come to their own level and say, come to think of it. Maybe they are volatile. That's why you are not supposed to harvest it in the afternoon. So you are supposed to harvest it in the evening, night, where if it has to do with carbohydrate, maybe because of photosynthesis, the metabolism of that is done. So, and then some volatile compounds cannot be harvested in the afternoon. You have to do it in the middle of the night or in the morning, phenols and the rest. So you have to look at that to help them understand. You respect their culture because it's their knowledge, and you ensure to them that yes, what they are saying is correct, and you back it with your own. Prevent biopiracy. You ensure that there is benefit sharing. Okay, after the research, for them to give you such information, you have to build trust in them, that at the end of the research you are doing, it will still come back to them to share the knowledge with them, so that they will understand. Dr. Salami talked about sometimes they do, it's not just one plant. Yes, They use like this part, they plug this neem, they use guava leaves and the rest. But when they are talking to you, if they don't have trust in you, they may not even tell you to that details. So you have to come down to their level, build trust with them. So you harmonize standardization without cultural illusion. So they have to understand that what they are doing, yes, is okay, but this is the standard way of doing it, and this is it. So you flow together with them. So the goal of this cultural context, I can say, is science must respect, must honor heritage. Next slide, please. So we look at the community context of testing this traditional medicine. So traditional medicine remain the first line healthcare in rural Africa, and China and the rest. We have heard how China have merged this information together. You go to the hospital, you have your choice. So for us to go into testing traditional medicine is very key, because we are saving the life of the community. Because when you have the standard, it goes to standardization. You help them, because that is their first line of healthcare, because to them is accessible. The traditional medicine is accessible and is cheaper. Empowering local healers and practitioners as co-investigators. So you organize workshops and seminars, is very key. I pinpoint that one because in 2015, I remember a conference organized by Center for Phytomedicine. They invited all the traditional healers, medicine practitioners in Nigeria to come so that they will rub minds together and understand their own point of view and why they don't want to collaborate with researchers. So I think organizing workshops and conferences in order to disseminate the result of your research, and also to give them the feedback in some of the steps you took in order to come to that conclusion of your own research. When you inform them and you try to align it with their own information that has been passed to them, you will see that there will be a synergy and understanding at that part. So the community context can also be said that to ensure health equity, sustainability, and trust. And so to protect biodiversity. When we do that documentation of the plant, you'll be able to do biodiversity and ethical bioprospective. The goal of this one, I put it, is communities are part of our research, but they are involved. They are being informed of the end point of a particular step that we took. And so the public health impact, next slide, please. When we carry out clinical trials on this traditional medicine, we improve safety of those community members and the efficacy through standardization, because you have to know, before it goes to clinical trial, we have to know that it's effective and is safe. Even after the clinical phases of the clinical trial, because before it is being taken to the market, you have to ensure that it's safe and is effective. So taking traditional medicine, carrying out clinical trials in traditional medicine, it will help improve safety of the community, not just taking the plant extract like that, but you are sure that what you are taking is effective and is safe. And then it is affordable, it's affordable. The evidence-based clinical trial contribute to sustainability of healthcare delivery. It helps in the healthcare delivery coverage of that community globally. But there are key challenges to that. Next slide, please. I look at challenges of these clinical trials for traditional medicine to go into clinical trials. My table here talked about the categories, the core challenges, and the impact. We talked about the funding and the regulations. We have is underfunded. Traditional medicine research is underfunded, and then there is no global standard for that. Somebody have mentioned it earlier. So that the impact is that it's slow translation and limited trade. So, and I talked about the science and quality, the herbal variability, complex mixture. In harvesting, where I talked about taking the GPS of that particular plant where you are harvesting it, the soil composition of that plant at that particular place may be different from another place. You may have the same plant, maybe the same species, but because it's being grown on a different soil content, there will be a variability in that. And so this is a complex mixture. It's not just one compound. It's not just like phenolics or maybe terpenes, saponins. It's a complex a mixture. And so it's difficult to reproduce for reproducibility, ethics and ownership. The challenges is risks of biopiracy and cultural erosion. Like we said earlier, the traditional practitioners are scared whether this will be stolen away from them or they will change what their knowledge, what they have inherited from their forefathers are. I also talked about the policies and operational recommendation on how to go about them. And
I like the both of them are directed to Dr. Mansur Ramanan. What do you say? What do you have to say about the polypharmacy effect of the herbal drugs? And some herbals contain multiple plants and could give different pharmacological effects. That's the first question. And the second question say, can contraindication be an issue with using both drugs together? I believe the herbal drugs and science drugs. Simple traditional medicines or home remedies can be used alongside. So I believe the questions are almost the same. So if Dr. Mansour is available, could you please take on the questions? Thank you.
Um, Thank you very much. They are very, very good questions.
Mm.
Now, polypharmacy with the use of traditional medications. Polypharmacy itself is not a problem, but the issue of drug-drug interaction, we know some of them we don't know, and some of them are not have not been studied. Now, there are some common drug-drug interactions that are known, and when people are taking some of these medications and they are on orthodox medications, they should report that to their physicians because, like, you can see a simple drug like warfarin that a lot of people are taking for patients who have had surgeries, heart procedures, even some of the patients who have had previous stroke, ischemic heart disease, and all that. You can see they have a lot of drug-drug interactions with common food items and even some of those herbal medications. Contraindications using both drugs. Yes, there are drugs that should not be used together. There are contraindications to use of some of those medications, and that is why patients who are taking these drugs should volunteer such information to their clinicians when they go for medical and they are seen in the hospital. And also, that is the reason why patients are advised not to be taking the medications on their own having them prescribed. But what I notice is that sometimes because of the way the environment is in traditional medicine, they are not well regulated. So people take anything that they want and nobody is responsible for anything. So I think these are the areas that we need to look into.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you. I would like to ask Dr. Salami a question. It says, can tradomedicine, can regulation of tradomedicine in Nigeria become a reality? Okay, after all has been said and done, can it actually become a reality in Nigeria? And that question is to Dr. Salami. Dr. Salami, are you there? Dr. Joy?
Yes, I am.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm pausing to answer that question.
Okay,
Yes, it can, but there's a
okay.
long road to
Mm,
getting there.
mm,
Like I said, anything that doesn't have a policy, the backing of the government, will not work. If we before any decision is taken or before anything can be done that affects the health or any aspect of the country, there has to be a policy that backs it up. Now, at the point of that policy being formulated, in most cases, the people at the table, the representatives at that table, need to do a good job. So if the representatives at the table where these policies are being discussed, we won't all be there. But the representatives of the various parties or the various there's a word I'm trying to look for, but the people who are vested interest in this, the representative, that if they do not speak well, if they do not put forward the right foot, it will be dead on arrival. The reason why up till now traditional medicine in Nigeria has been on for decades, from time immemorial, traditional medicines have been in use. Whether we want to acknowledge it or not, you go to the hospital, even some hospitals, you have some nurses even telling you go and meet so and so person to get the medication for so and so. But if we do not have the right representatives speaking where it matters, traditional medicine practice may not be integrated into orthodox medicine. And that is the end, that's the goal. Because that's why it's successful in many Asian countries, in Australia. I love the fact that now, Nigeria is now taking steps towards institutionalizing traditional medicine, but there is still a long way to go to generate trust from both sides of the divide, the traditional medicine practitioners and the orthodox medicine practitioners. There's still a way to go. We need to be able to find a way to satisfy both sides to a large extent. Then we'll be able to achieve that.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you, Dr. Joy, and thank you so much, Dr. Mensa. I don't know if Sarif will want to say one more thing all the way from India concerning that question. That do you think what you've heard about us, do you think there's a possibility that it becomes a reality on the global platform? Sarif Islam, are you there? Okay, so I don't think he's there right
Yeah,
now.
please
So
repeat the question once.
okay, so what you've heard about Nigeria on the global platform, do you think there's a possibility that further medicine will become more regulated like it is at your hand there in India?
Yeah, it's possible. Firstly, we have to create a other ministry, like Ministry of Welfare or any ministry. We need to have a separate ministry for the traditional part. One is for the modern and the other. In India, we have for modern we have Ministry of Health once, and the other for the traditional. For
Yeah.
one is for drugs and the other for the natural, the traditional medicine. So in
Wow.
that
Great.
sense, we see, Nigeria can have a separate for one
Body.
traditional and the other modern, separate ministry.
Oh, that's fine. That's a new one. I think that's really good. Thank you very much. Thank you. So I'm
Yeah.
going to invite, yes, I'm going to invite Noria to round off for us right now. So please over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. I first of all I want to say a big thank you to everybody that's spoken on this roundtable. It was first of its kind that we wanted to organize. And whilst we were thinking about it, NAFDAC came up. We saw that report about NAFDAC, regulating, traditional medicine. So it was really timely, So, sorry, could you, Precious or whoever is there, mute whoever mic is open so that we don't get an echo? So first of all, I want to say thank you. I've been well educated today as far as I'm concerned. There were certain things that I wasn't even thinking about in terms of, when we will have this discussion. I wasn't even thinking about, the IP and the protection of, this the community that actually, are the custodian of these medicines. I didn't even think about that because the fact is that, when the chemical compounds are developed for our standard drugs and all of that, the IP actually is preserved for 20, almost 25 years before another person can actually take that compound and replicate it with another drug. So people like Pfizer, Bayer, and the rest of them, this is how they made their money because they had their prototype, they held on to it, they had that IP for a long time. So it is something that I believe that when we start to, I believe so much in the power of education, the power of knowledge. That's what and that's why for United Clinical Trials, that's why we keep doing this. It's not popular. I remember when we just started and we said clinical trials and clinical research or research in general is not being talked about enough in Nigeria. And somebody said to me, oh, it's being talked about. It's just that, Nigeria is a whatever, the way we like to abuse Nigeria. Nigeria is just a country that, the hospitals are blah, blah, blah. And I said, you don't get it. It's education. People need to be educated. If they're educated, then you are able to make functional decisions. You are educated enough to be able to make your decision. And then when you make a decision, you're able to go forward. That's from my own perspective. And that's why we are using this approach to continue to educate people. And I like what Sarif just said in terms of like, don't bring it together, separate. I believe that when there are two different bodies or two ministries, because the fact is that, and Dr. Joyce already alluded to that fact that there will be major quarrels. The clinicians will never accept tradomedical. The tradomedical will never accept the clinicians. They will look at it that the clinicians will tell you, I have PhD in neurology, I have studied all sorts of this, and then you want to come and tell me that it's this leaf that cures it. They'll never accept it. And then the traditionalist will also tell you that before you were born, the 10th generation before you were born will have been drinking it. So I completely agree with Serif. And I think that's the one of the approaches that they've taken in South Korea and in places like China as well. And they've taken these approaches in places like in Asia. And as you know, as I already alluded to, like in India. And this roundtable, for instance, it's opened up my mind and my understanding, of additional aspects of this. And the question that everybody's asking, that is this possible in Nigeria? Anything is possible. What we don't even understand right now is that the way Nigeria is becoming a huge attraction to the whole world. That's one thing we need to understand. Everybody wants a bit of Nigerians. And like I said it in the first webinar that we did, I said, we must be ready and we have to be prepared so that we can control the narrative. We have to control the narrative. We know what we want. We know what we are dealing with. We should be able to manage our expectations from inside outwards. So a lot will happen. I tell you, in the next 5 years, a lot is going to happen. I don't know if some of you saw the announcement that IQVIA, has partnered with the federal government and all of that. IQVIA has only existed for started fully in about 2015, 2016. They merged with another IT company. And because IQVIA is here, it has become a huge attention to the rest of the world because everybody is going where IQVIA is going. IQVIA is huge. So the next 5 years, a lot of things will change. A lot of things are going to change. And I believe that, this conversation that we are having right now is going to be very, very relevant in the future. The fact that we've done it in this, our small enclosed space, it doesn't mean that this information is not going to go out. Usually we put all our information out there. Precious and the team, you guys can share on our YouTube channel and all of that. We're going to put it out there. We put that information out there. We are very engaged on LinkedIn as well. And our general plan is that we'll have a bigger, workshop so that we can, attract the stakeholders and the players in the industry. And then let's see where we can take this journey to. So I want to appreciate everybody, Dr. Mansour, Dr. Joyce, Sarif, Comfort, everybody that's been able to make it tonight. Like I said earlier, I'm like in the part of the country that I am right now, people are kind of like hitting the pubs and they're like, it's Friday night, it's 1 o'clock, and we are here, we are learning. So it's going to benefit us the more. So thank you so much. I appreciate you, and we hope that you honor us
Thank you.
again
Thank
when we
you,
come
madam. This was a nice conversation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, Joke, your hand was up.
I'm sorry to bring this up now, so maybe we'll just answer through an email a question about can computer-aided drug discovery be of help in validating about drugs? So I think it's a very beautiful question because now we're going into the world of AI, so anything can happen. So can computer-aided drug discovery be of help in validating about drugs? So I don't know if I should push this question out or if we should do this on our platform, on our community. So if you're not on our community,
We can comment on it quickly. I think Dr.
okay.
Mansour
Yeah.
and I think Dr. Oladimeji as well kind of like already alluded to this, that real world evidence. The fact
Yeah.
that whatever we want to use AI for, we need the data. So real world evidence, Dr. Mansour, I think I'll let you answer this. I'm sure you started with it previously.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think with the advent of technology, no doubt it's going to be useful, and we should encourage deploying such tools for studying our herbal drugs because like you are aware, even COVID-19 vaccine didn't go through the rigors of the regular clinical trials, and in the future, that is where things will go. So we shouldn't be left behind, and we should not be complaining. So I think the time is now right and appropriate to deploy those computational tools to validate.
Hello. Unfortunately, I was going in and out, but I have listened to all the different speakers and they've all really said a lot. I have learned and gained a lot from this discussion. So we in the practice of oncology, this kind of discussion is something that is happening. In fact, this is really setting a stage for advancement in the management of cancers and other conditions. When you look at how we have very small representation in clinical trials that are done globally, it's high time now that we should look inwards to investigate our tumor biology, because tumor biology is king, to investigate this tumor biology and to also utilize our traditional medications that are in our vicinities. For example, in oncology practice, when we give patients definitive oncology care, for example, chemotherapy or radiotherapy, sometimes patients come down with thrombocytopenia, and then our patients go and take traditional medicines. Either you like it or you don't like it, either you know or you don't know. The typical oncology patient takes traditional medicines. They take all sorts of things. Is it from ugu leaf? Is it from papaya extract? That's pawpaw leaf. You hear patients giving themselves advice, go and take this, go and take that. And you don't blame them because these traditional medications, many have been tested in different climes and they feel they work. However, there has been scientific validation for some of them. For example, the use of carica papaya extract, that's the pawpaw leaf our patients go to take. Studies have shown how it improves thrombocytopenia, how it um, reduces platelet destruction, how it stabilizes the hematocrit. So when patients are being faced with hello,
We receive, we can hear you,
hello.
ma'am.
Actually hearing you, Dr.
We can
Ahmed,
hear
we are
you.
Okay, so when patients are faced, yes, thank you very much. So when patients are faced with their situations and they have options, the thrombocytopenia, if you take the thrombopoietin in tablets, a card will be like 240,000 just for like 10 tablets. Then if she looks at the option of taking the pawpaw leaf extract, of course, she will go to the pawpaw leaf extract. But just as our earlier speakers have raised, how much should she take? She may have other comorbidities. Drug interaction is a big challenge. A big headache. Sometimes patients go take chemotherapy, and by next morning they are taking ginger exercises, and then the patient goes to take these medications without telling you for the fear of her oncologist not wanting her to take other medications. And this does education is not the determinant. Even the well-educated professors go for these remedies, and the poor peasant farmer would also go for such. So this is the right time for us to really advance research in our traditional medications because we have to have a good representation in our research studies, in our clinical trials. We don't have an idea of our tumor biology. Most of our tumors are aggressive. And when you look at the clinical trials that we use in oncology, the African descent representation is very, very, very minute. Sometimes 2%, 1%. So this is a very good area that we should look into. So I'm going to my topic that was given to me, trust in clinical research. We work with patients, we work with colleagues, all in clinical research, and we know that trust is an important aspect of carrying out research. It should be one of the prerequisites because if your participants don't trust what you're talking about, they won't go for that research or they will not follow the rules as you've given them, and that will give us false trust. Well, I'm trying to just summarize, hyper summarize before the network goes off. Can I go to the first slide so that I scroll through? Okay, so trust is the belief in the integrity. Is that the first slide? Okay, okay, okay. So trust is the belief in the integrity. Okay, so next slide, please. In the integrity of the research processes and the reliability of its outcomes. And this involves confidence from the participants, the people you're doing this research with, that's the patients or your clients, the researchers themselves, and the public. And when carrying out research, we have to consider those participants involved in this process. Many times participants tell us that they want to be involved in the process from the beginning, and you don't blame them because of so much propaganda, so much stories they've had in the past. So this is very important that we are transparent in whatever we do. We respect our participants And there should be clear communication. Students may join your research after they've had one or two, you don't find them. Or sometimes their relatives will pull them out. Then the data integrity, you need to make sure that you get your research assistants trained well so that you get good data. And the overall success of medical advancement, research technology that we incorporate into our research to really improve and give us better outcomes is important. So when we look at unfortunately,
I would say, okay, send her a private message so that we don't hold everybody up. We've run out of time completely. But I want to say thank you to everybody. I know we really wanted to hear Dr. Ayuba, but unfortunately the situation is not helping at all. So we'll see if we can have like another session, and then obviously we'll bring her back, and then she'll probably be the first person to present, and then we'll take it from there. But I want to say big thank you so much, every single person that's presented today. Thank you to everybody that was able to join as well. I wish you a very lovely weekend, and we'll see you soon. We will have this, as I said, this is going to be on YouTube. So we'll send the links across to you so that at least you can share it with your network as well, and we can all send this information out there, because I believe what we've discussed today was, I mean, I can't